as we go through this today, I'm going to talk about fear. And this was kind of inspired. I was listening to a Christian radio station, and there's a song called Bulletproof. And the band that sings, I can't remember the name of the band that sings it, but they had, I think the lead singer from the band was on, they were interviewing him, and he said that the concept of not having fear is in the Bible 365 times. A total of 365 times it says, don't fear, I'm not afraid, things like that. So that's what I'm going to talk about a little bit today. So as we begin here, let's just go to the Lord in prayer. Father God, I thank you so much. I thank you for your word. I thank you for our salvation, Lord. I thank you for your Son, Jesus. And Lord, as we go into this message today, Lord, I pray that your Spirit just fall upon us. I pray that our ears are open, our hearts are softened, and this message just grow on us, and then our courage just continue to increase and increase. I ask these things in Jesus' name. Amen. Well, the dictionary definition of fear is that fear is the natural feeling of alarm caused by the expectation of danger, pain, or disaster. It's on my end. We're not dead. It's not working? Mic problems, we'll fix that. It was working when I started.
Can you hear Dad?
Pretty good. I can hear pretty good.
Okay, I'll just talk loud. All right.
Sorry.
That's all right. I don't have to hold that thing then. That's good. So again, the dictionary definition of fear is the natural feeling of alarm caused by expectation of danger, pain, disaster, something like that. And that natural fear is something that we have all had at one point in time. I thought it was interesting. They said there's 500 documented phobias that are listed. 500 phobias, things that people are afraid of, sometimes without reason. Some of them were kind of fun. Dentophobia is the fear of dentists. Cacophobia is the fear of ugliness. Gynophobia is the fear of women. And phobophobia is the fear of phobias. So I thought that they have a phobia of phobias. Somebody likes to sit down and classify all these things, I think. One of Jane's favorite old TV shows that she used to watch was Monk. And it was a detective show, but he had all sorts of really bad phobias of things that, including like milk and strange things like that. As we start here, I'm gonna go into our verse to start this off. I marked it. We're going to go to Isaiah. And in Isaiah 43, verses 1 through 7 is where I'm going to be. Chapter 43, verse 1 starts at, "But now this is what the Lord says, who created you, O Jacob, he who formed you, O Israel. Fear not, for I have redeemed you. I have summoned you by name, you are mine. When you pass through the waters, I'll be with you. When you pass through rivers, they will not sweep over you. When you walk through the fire, you will not be burned, for the flames will not set you ablaze. For I am the Lord your God, the Holy One of Israel, your Savior. I give Egypt for your ransom, Cush and Seba for your stead, since you are precious and honored in my sight, and because I love you. I will give men in exchange for your life, and people in exchange for your life. Do not be afraid, for I am with you. I will bring your children from the east and gather you from the west. I will say to the north, give them up, and to the south, do not hold them back. Bring my sons from afar and my daughters from the ends of the earth. Everyone who is called by my name, whom I created for my glory, whom I formed and made." Now at this point in time, Israel's got issues going on, and Isaiah's talking to them, and he's trying to give words of God that are comfort for fear. Satan loves to use fear. He loves to use fear to challenge our faith. He loves to throw something at us and make us afraid so that we falter in our faith. Things that would challenge us. We all had those things. We look around the world today, there's a lot of that stuff going on. Just the health things alone. Cancer. Scary word. It's a scary word. There's a lot of fear involved if somebody hears that word or knows something about that. The fear of death. terrorism that's going on right now. Another big attack over in England this last week. All those kind of things that are going on. Fear of what the government's going to do next. We never know what they're going to do next. All those things could, if you wanted to, you could live in a state of fear all the time. I've got a really close friend of mine whose wife is agoraphobic. She's actually afraid to go outside her own house, even in her yard. She doesn't like to go past the threshold of the house. And she's really battling that. Lately it's been really bad from what he's been telling us. So, but how do we react? Now, fear by itself, it's not good or bad. It just is. Fear is just fear. There's a book that I really liked, I talked about a lot when I was teaching defensive tactics, called The Gift of Fear. And Gavin Becker wrote that. And the gift of fear simply is, fear just tells you need to be more careful, so be more careful. Fear is something that will teach you to train yourself to overcome what you need to overcome. It's an indication that maybe you need to smarten up and wise up a little bit. But fear also can be a negative. It can go either way. The difference is how we react to it. Either we can handle fear or fear can handle us. It all comes down to what's in control, us or the fear. The fear will happen. There will be fear in our lives. But how we deal with that is what's important. Now, in the Bible, the most common command in the Bible is fear not. That is the one thing that is said the most often in the Bible, fear not. And I think the reason it's said over and over again is because we need to hear it more than once. We need to hear over and over again that we are not supposed to be afraid. When God says fear not, he gives us all sorts of reasons why not. And I'm going to go through a few of those right now. But truly conquering that fear comes only from God. God is greater than anything that's going on in the world. The first point I want to bring up is that the people of God should have no fear because we belong to him. In that passage I read from Isaiah, he said, you are mine. Psalm 139:16. I'm going to be bouncing all over the Bible here, so get your fingers loosened up if you want to stay with me. 139 verse 16 says, your eyes saw me unformed in the body. All the days ordained for me were written in your book before one of them came to be. God created us from the very beginning. He created us for a purpose. He created us in our entirety, and he knew exactly what he was doing when he did that. If all that stuff's been taken care of, that helps a lot in our fear. Understanding that God took care of all that. Okay? We were created by him for a purpose. The second thing, the second part of that one is that we are redeemed. We're saved by God. And he talks about redemption in that passage in Isaiah, but I'm also going to go to Galatians on this one. In Galatians chapter 3, verse 3 is where I'll be. And now we'll get to it here in a second. Galatians 3:3 says, 3:13, excuse me. 3:13 says, Christ redeemed us from the curse of the law by becoming a curse for us. For it is written, cursed is everyone who is hung on a tree. Our fear can be conquered by the cross. By opening up our eyes and just seeing what Jesus already did, our fear is conquered. There's nothing that we could have done to overcome that, but God loved us so much he did that. That redemption is something we couldn't do for ourselves, but God loved us so much that he did that. Small children, when they're scared, what do? Every single one of us that's a parent has shared a bed with a child in the middle of the night. Whether it's thunder and lightning that does it, or the monster under the bed, or whatever it is, the nightmare that causes them to come and crawl up into bed and then kick all night. But children automatically run to their parents. If there's an overwhelming fear, they run to safety, and safety is mom and dad. Because mom and dad can handle anything in their eyes. We shouldn't be any different with God. There's nothing God can't handle, so why would we be afraid to take it to God? We have to remember also that we are children of God, and that we have been called by name. 1 Peter 2:9. Where am I going to go next? 1 Peter, one of my favorite books. Get to it here. 1 Peter 2 verse 9 says, "But you are a chosen people, a royal priesthood, a holy nation, a people belonging to God, that you may declare the praises of him who called you out of darkness into his wonderful light." Peter's saying there is that we've been called. We are his children. He called us out, intentionally said, "Here, you are mine." God says, "You are mine." So if we were willing to run to our earthly parents, how much more should we be running to God? You are mine. Boom. I own you. That's a comforting thing. And that's something we can take courage from and take strength from as well. Another point I want to bring up is that we need to fear not because God is with us. Verse 2 of Isaiah that I read here said, "When you pass through the waters, I'll be with you. When you pass through the rivers, they will not sweep you over. When you walk through the fire, you'll not be burned. I am with you." I am with you. Now God said that because of the covenant that he had with Abraham. He was saying that in Isaiah to Israel. But our covenant through Christ has God saying the same thing with you. Jesus said that himself. As he's talking to his disciples right before he leaves, he says, "Lo, I am with you always. I am with you. I'm not walking with you, but I am with you. I'm not physically with you, but I am with you." Beyond our comprehension, God is with us at all times. We may not see him or experience him or be paying attention, but he's there. There are occasionally times when your children will have told you, "Do you have eyes in the back of your head? Do you know what's happening before you know what's happening?" Teachers at school, sometimes I know that happens. I love it when somebody's doing something, they turn around and they look over their shoulder. See a teacher standing there like, "Oh, you were watching." Yeah, we've been paying attention. Yeah. God's the same way with us. There are times in our life where we'll go, "Oh, you saw that." God said, "Yeah, been there the whole time. Been there when you were suffering, been there when you were not." So God is always with us. God's present doesn't mean we won't have fear, but it does mean that fear doesn't have to overcome us. God is with us always, but we will still have troubles in this world. This is not our home, we know that. There will be challenges in this world, we know that. But we don't have to be afraid of it. Now, part of the reason we don't have to be afraid of it is this isn't the end. Romans 8:3 says, "If God is with us, who's against us?" The creator of the universe is on your side. You got a good buddy there. Okay? If that's your backup, you can walk in fearlessly. Both as a soldier and in law enforcement, I had the opportunity to experience that firsthand. Going into something that I'm a little nervous about, but I know that somebody's behind me watching my back. That there's somebody there. When we were in Somalia, there was I was attached to 10th Mountain when we went over there, and 10th Mountain Aviation was there at the time. And they had a thing called Eyes Over Mogadishu, which was 24 hours a day. There was a Black Hawk and an Apache flying over Mogadishu, 24 hours a day. So they had an attack helicopter and a helicopter that could take you out of there if they needed to 24 hours a day. And they're flying around. And we got into some really bad situations. But I tell you what, the sound of a helicopter in those situations give you a lot of courage. Because they could put a lot of firepower down and protect you if you needed it. They were always there. It was a very, very, very comforting feeling to hear that helicopter. Same thing happened to law enforcement. There's been times when I'm going into something and I call it in and I ask for backup, and as I do it, I hear somebody say, "I'm on my way. I'm 2 minutes out." Well, I know I'm not going to be alone. Somebody's going to be with me. This year will be the first time in the last 14 years I've worked in Sturgis. This year I won't. It's because I'm coaching football. But there were times in there where there were shootings and stabbings and things like that, and miraculously, 50 guys would show up in uniform. We were watching each other, we were listening to each other, we were there to back each other up. We always worked in teams, we always had our headsets on, our earpieces in, so we were listening to the radio, and something happened, you knew you were never alone. They're always going to be there. I had an outlaw biker ask me one time, how many of you are there? Of course, we don't ever tell anybody that, because there's 500,000 of them and usually about 80 of us. And I said, well, there's one more. One more than what? I said, one more than you. One more than we need. There'll be one guy that sits around picking his nose because he has nothing to do, no matter what happens. Always have one more than we need. God's the same way. God is always more than we need. God doesn't give us just enough. God gives us abundantly. God doesn't protect us just enough. God is protecting us always. God is blessing us in times of fear. When there are times when we are at our weakest, He is His strongest. That kind of blessing is an amazing thing if we stop and look back. If we look back at times in our lives when we were in the darkest, and we look back and we realize we came through that, think about the fact that when that happened, God was carrying all the extra weight for us. When we couldn't, He did it all. So in these times when we're not in that, we have to remember that whenever we need it, there's an abundance of backup there. We don't have to worry about not having enough to support us. Isaiah 54:17 says, God's presence is within us 24/7. 24/7 God is with us. Let me go to that real quick. Isaiah 54:17. No weapon forged against you will prevail, and you will refute every tongue that accuses you. This is the heritage of the servants of the Lord. This is the vindication for me, declares the Lord. Nothing can stand up against you because of me, not because of us. We don't get magic pixie dust thrown on us when we become Christians that make us invincible. We simply fall under the umbrella of God, who is invincible. Hebrews 13:5 says, I will never leave you, I will never forsake you. God's faithfulness goes beyond our own human understanding. We cannot understand how faithful God is. Because we have a hard time understanding something we don't experience, right? I jumped out of airplanes. If you've never done it before, you probably don't really understand the thrill that I get out of that, the joy I get out of that. I've never scuba dived. I can watch it on TV and I see somebody out at the Great Coral Reef swimming around. Man, that looks cool. But I've never done it myself. I don't have any true experience with it. I ride horses. I love riding horses. But I've never been a jockey in the Belmont Stakes riding something that is going faster than most cars will go, which I can't imagine how they had their eyes open. I picture those jockeys up there with their eyes closed, just letting the horse go. But that would probably be what I would do, but that's not what they're doing. I don't have that experience. I think I know kind of what it's like, but I don't know it completely. It's the same thing with us. We may not ever, until we stand face to face with God, understand all that He has really done for us. We may not understand all those things yet. We experience peaks, little windows of it. But we don't have that unity with God 100% of the time that we'll have in heaven. We have that to look forward to. But right now, we have to understand that the fear that we feel about anything is completely overcome by God who's always with us. He's always here. Ephesians 6:10-18 is where I'm going to go now. And I want to bring this to your attention. Ephesians 6:10-18 talks about the full armor of God. I'm going to talk about that in a little bit. There's a guy named Richard Davis. And Richard Davis was one of the first inventors. His company's called Second Chance. And he's one of the first inventors of soft body armor, which is worn by cops all over the world now. And even soldiers are wearing it now. It's a soft body armor that wraps around your body that doesn't feel, it's not that heavy. And it flexes and it bends with you. Now, it does keep the air wrapped around you and you sweat terribly inside it, but it's just soft. He invented that body armor. Now, to prove that his body armor worked when he went to places to sell it, he would put it on and shoot himself in the chest with a gun.
Oh my gosh.
He would take a .38, stand there and shoot himself in the chest point blank with his vest on to prove that the bullet didn't go through. That's a lot of faith. It's a lot of faith in your product. Now we know that once they're used, you shouldn't use them again. He was using the same chest model over and over again, but they say now once it gets used, it changes the molecular structure within it like a bicycle helmet. Once it gets cracked really hard, you're not supposed to wear them anymore. And his company is really cool because if your life is saved by one of his vests, he'll give you a free one. They're not cheap. He gives out a free one every year to anybody who gets shot in a vest. But that kind of faith in his equipment is kind of amazing. I heard my wife say, oh my gosh. It's kind of amazing that there's that much faith in equipment. But when we go into Ephesians here, I want us to look at this. And I want you to understand, when he talks about the armor of God, I want you to understand, when God says, fear not, that is an action verb. When he says, fear not, it is usually followed by something we're supposed to do to keep us from fearing. This is an active thing. Our protection from God is an active thing. And Paul in the book of Ephesians talks about this when he talks about the armor of God, starting in Ephesians 6, starting in verse 10. Finally, be strong in the Lord and in his mighty power. Okay? Be strong in the Lord. Verse 11 says, put on the full armor of God so that you can take your stand against the devil's schemes. For our struggle is not against flesh and blood, but against the rulers, against the authorities, against the powers of this dark world, and against the spiritual forces of evil in the heavenly realms. Therefore put on the full armor of God, so that when the day of evil comes, you may not be able to stand your ground. Now after you've done everything, stand. Stand firm then, with the belt of truth buckled around your waist, with the breastplate of righteousness in place, and with your feet fitted with the readiness that comes from the gospel of peace. In addition to this, take up the shield of faith, with which you can extinguish all the flaming arrows of the evil one. Paul described it in very vivid terms. I've always wanted to do this, and someday I will. It's on my bucket list. I'm going to make a set of armor that goes with this. I want to make an actual physical set of armor that goes with this. But he talks about putting on things. Well, that's an active thing that we're supposed to do. If a soldier or law enforcement officer is going to work, going to place of conflict, they put on pieces and parts of equipment that are necessary to do the job, that are necessary to overcome the obstacles that may arise. That soft body armor I talked about, almost all soldiers wear body armor now. They put on their body armor. They lace up their boots, they tie them tight, because that's an important part. Your footwear falls apart in the middle of a fight, you're going to have problems. They put on the belt that holds the sword. You can't hold a tool in your hand all the time. You have to have something to carry it. And that belt of truth, that's what it is. It's a complete encircling thing that goes around you and helps you carry what you need to carry. And it talks about the shield too. And that shield of faith that he talks about, the image of a shield is very, very strong for me. And when it comes to that, David in Psalm 147 said, cover me, Lord, in this time of battle. That was one of his refrains that came back several times. Cover me, Lord. Cover me. That's what the shield is for in the end. You can have all the preparatory stuff on, but in the end, the one thing you can move and put up in front of you is that shield. The imagery that comes to my mind always is a shield wall. You know, there's a technique that the Vikings used, and the Europeans picked up after the Vikings. The Romans used it. What would happen is all the people would stand together, shoulder to shoulder. All the soldiers would stand together, shoulder to shoulder. And they would take their shields and they would interlock their shields. So you had a solid wall. And then the guys in the rank behind them would take their shields and cover the heads of the guys in the front row as well as the heads on them. And when they locked that up, it was a solid wall of shields. And the guy in the back row would support the guy in the front row. So if somebody ran into him, he would hold him up. It was an immovable wall that got thrown up when there was danger. Whether it was humans coming at him, whether it was arrows, whatever it was, that shield wall would stop it. Now, I want you to imagine us as Christians. One of the biggest reasons that we come here on Sunday is to fellowship with each other, to gain strength from each other, to pray for each other, to know that I can come here with my prayer concerns and you will pray for it, to know that you can come here and share your burden and we will help lift it up. Now imagine the Christians of faith standing shoulder to shoulder against the enemy and everybody lifting that faith up like that shield and setting up that shield wall. If you're behind the wall, you got no worries. Now, if you were the guy without a shield and you got in front of the wall, your goose is cooked. You're done. You're the one guy on the wrong side of the fence. That's just not going to work very well. When we are dealing with fear, having that shield of faith is so important. And using it is also important. Put it between you and what you fear. Put it between you and what the threat is. Hold that up, knowing these things about God, knowing that He created you, knowing that He has a plan for you, knowing that He has called you, and knowing that He is with you at all times. We have to remember this is not our home. Okay? One of the most famous songs that's ever read is, "Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me." There's another, "I will fear no fear." We have to remember that this world in itself is a valley of shadow. We are passing through. This is not where we stop. This is not the end all. We are passing through this. And God is with us. God is with us whenever we pass through the valley. Daily, God is with us. There is nothing that can overcome that. We have to remember when those times come that the fear hits us to turn and say, "I'm not sure I can handle this, but I know you can." And then go forward. Don't let it stop you. The most dangerous thing you can do anytime you're in a fight is nothing. Teddy Roosevelt had a real famous quote that I love. He said, "In any circumstance, the best thing you can do is make the right decision. The second best thing you can do is make the wrong decision. Because the worst thing you can ever do is not make any decision at all. When you freeze up, you lose. When you're indecisive, you let everything build up against you and you're not fighting back anymore. We're going through the valley of the shadow. God is with us. We need to take that faith, hold it up in front of us and say, "God, I know you can cover what I can't cover," and keep going. Keep going forward. The only way to get somewhere is to keep moving. We have to keep our eyes on the prize, and that's heaven. That's God. Now I want to bring up one other command that I've always really liked. They actually made a movie about this not that long ago that was really, really neat, really touched me. But Joshua said this, it was said in Deuteronomy, it said in Joshua, it said in several other places in the Bible. I think there's 12 places where this actual phrase is held up. It says, "Be strong and courageous." Be strong and courageous. Every time that's said in the Bible, someone's being sent out into a place that might scare them a little bit. When the Israelites first came across the Jordan, Moses had led them that far. Joshua was taking them beyond that. They're sent out to go conquer. Go take out the trash. Kind of scary. The Bible says some of the people they were going up against were giants. It wasn't just David and Goliath, but there was a whole race of giants, and there were several of them mentioned in the Old Testament. They're going against some pretty fierce fighters. Be strong and courageous. Deuteronomy 31:6 says, "Be strong and courageous. Do not be afraid of them, because the Lord your God goes with you. He will never forsake you. Be strong and courageous. Isn't that what we want for our children as well? Isn't that what we want for those that are stumbling, that are troubled? Be strong and courageous. When I see a child in school that's struggling and saying, I can't do this, I'll never be good at this, I'm not smart enough, be strong and courageous. Plow forward and get through it. May not be the best thing you ever do in your life, but it'll feel like it when you accomplish it, when you get there, when you finish the race. Even if you're not first, you finish. That's a lot. Be strong and courageous. I have a belief, my personal belief right now is that we, in this day and age, right now, we are living in the eye of the storm. I think we're in the eye of the storm right now. If you've ever seen hurricanes or have any concept of that, what the eye of a storm means is the hurricane is all the way around the outside. And it hit and it pushed through. And then the eye of the storm is right in the dead center. And people that are in it, even in the center, tornadoes sometimes, will say, dead silence and calm. You can see everything in the distance, 360 degrees around you, but you're in the middle. Well, being in the eye of the storm is good because you get a second wind. You can made it through the first part, but you know that back end is going to come and get you too. I think we're in the eye of the storm right now. I think as a church, as people of faith in this world right now, I think we're in the eye of the storm. We're not in the worst part yet. That's coming. We're in that little pause in between. Knowing that, we have to prepare for that. We have to prepare for the storm that's coming. And the greatest way that we can do that is to arm ourselves, like Paul said in Ephesians. We need to belt on truth, which means you got to know it. We get into our word. We need to put on that breastplate of righteousness. We need to be in practice of praying, getting on our knees, listening to God. If we don't do it now, when we really need it, it's going to be a new skill for us. And new skills are harder to deal with than something you're accustomed to. There are things we all do that we can just do in the dark. You can do without thinking about it. Prayer and reading the Word should be that familiar with us. We should be that comfortable and confident that we don't even think about it. It just happens. Being in that eye of the storm is a good thing, but it's also a time we should prepare for the second half of that storm to come. I'm going to take you to 2 Timothy as a finish here. I want us to think about this. I want this to be something that you take to yourself. I would love it if this becomes something that you take into your heart and hold on to, because the time will come when you need it. If it's not here now, it's coming. Somewhere in your life, you're going to be challenged. And 2 Timothy chapter 1, verse 7, it says, "For God did not give us a spirit of timidity, but a spirit of power, of love, and self-discipline." On that day of Pentecost, when the Holy Spirit descended, the response by the apostles was not fear. The Bible describes it as tongues of fire. But they weren't afraid. They were empowered. They had been living in fear. Jesus had been crucified. They were worried about persecution. They were locking themselves away. They were locking their doors and peeking over corners and trying to be careful. And all of a sudden, the Holy Spirit came upon them. And that spirit of power settled in. And one of my favorite guys in the New Testament, Peter, who had been through so much, put his foot in his mouth on a regular basis, said things he shouldn't have said things he should have said, walked with Jesus, walked on water with Jesus. All these things happened. Denied Jesus 3 times. And then had Jesus, after the resurrection, come back and remind him of the fact that he denied him 3 times. He was hiding. That's why he denied him. He was afraid. He was hiding. After Jesus died, he went back to fishing. He'd lost everything that he'd done. Everything that God took him with, he got afraid, went the other way for a while. And Jesus stepped in and said, "Oh, no, no." And he sent the Spirit. And with power and with strength, Peter stepped out immediately and started to preach the word. In public. Said that day, I believe, 5,000 were saved. He went from that spirit of fear, being strong and courageous, and stepping out. And that's when God used him. Be strong and courageous. The spirit that is in you is a spirit of power. Let's pray. Father God, I thank you for your word. I thank you for your word today.